We're the Avengers. We gotta finish this. You trust me? I do.
After looking at all the news that we received earlier today, I trust camouflage more than ever. Anyways, welcome back, true believers and all you merry Marvelites, to another very exciting Iron Man VR related video. And yes, in case you happen to miss it, we did receive a lot more updates regarding Iron Man VR, as well as new details regarding the overall experience that the game will entail. And even though I encourage all of you to fully read over the secondary article within this video, the main two articles that we are going to be taking a look at is indeed the primary one from Variety, as well as the secondary one from PlayStation Blog. Because while the PlayStation Blog article showcases some brand new screenshots and GIFs of the game in action, as well as what the overall world will look like when you're able to fly around as Iron Man, the main article that gives all the new details about the game itself is the one from Variety. Plus, I'll also be referencing some other gaming news outlets that do cover some other aspects regarding Iron Man VR and the wider world building scope that Marvel is creating with this really unique game. Now, for me personally, I am very much invested within this game because I do own a PlayStation VR headset, and I have been waiting for a really awesome AAA superhero game to be made for that form of media. So seeing that PlayStation Camouflage and Marvel are trying to do the same thing with Iron Man in a virtual reality format is very exciting to say the least. So to begin with the main article from Variety.com, the title of it does state, "Inside PlayStation VR, stunning Marvel's Iron Man VR. Iron Man is a perfect fit for virtual reality. The helmet, the physicality of his powers, the embodiment of his armor, they all lend themselves to a VR experience. While Marvel's Iron Man VR is proof of that, creating an authentic experience required nailing one iconic visual, and it wasn't easy. One of the things that we had to start from scratch over 4 times was the HUD. The first HUD wasn't good enough. The second HUD wasn't good enough. It wasn't until the 5th one where we really sort of felt like that 3D, that parallaxing was there, and you get that real sense that you're inside the helmet. It's a stunning moment, a sort of one-to-one feeling when you slide on the PlayStation VR headset and are suddenly inside Iron Man's helmet. As with the movies, when the helmet boots up, you see a sort of faint blue flickering that outlines the interior contours of the faceplate. Then the HUD appears, floating just inside your view without blocking the world around you. So seeing that Camouflage and Marvel are really trying to do their best to make you quote-unquote feel like Iron Man, it really does seem like they are putting in a lot of thought and passion into making how you will start the actual VR game. And hearing how they're describing it similar to that of the Iron Man movies with Robert Downey Jr., I'm really excited to see how that's going to compare when actually playing the game yourself. So to move on with the article itself, it states, Payton said the team spent a lot of time dissecting how the Iron Man movies created the HUD to make their virtual reality version. While Marvel's Iron Man VR, a PlayStation VR exclusive, doesn't have any official narrative ties to the Marvel Cinematic Universe or the comics, the team is working closely with Marvel to make the game. The concept came out of a meeting at E3 in 2016 after Insomniac's Spider-Man game was announced, Payton said. Insomniac's Brian Intar, which is spelt wrong, introduced Payton to Jay Ong, who runs Marvel Games. Jay asked if we would be interested in working on a VR game, Payton said. We came back a few weeks later and said, hey, we would love to work in VR with Marvel as long as we can work on Iron Man because it's the perfect melding. And to quickly reference another gaming news outlet to reference what this paragraph just stated is that not only is this game not connected to the MCU or the comics, but it's also not connected to Spider-Man PS4. Now, as you should all know by now, Spider-Man PS4 has done incredibly well in terms of fan and critical acclaim, as well as sell beyond expectations. And because of this massive success within the gaming realm for Marvel's properties, especially with what Brian Intar himself stated in another interview, people are wondering if we are indeed going to be receiving the Marvel gaming universe. So alongside us still not knowing whether or not the Avengers project connects with Spider-Man PS4, we can at least officially confirm that this exclusive Iron Man game for the PlayStation VR is not connected within Spider-Man PS4's world. And even though some fans weren't even thinking about that specific connection in general, it's really nice to have official confirmation from Collider Games' Dorian Parks that it is indeed its own separate universe. So even though Iron Man VR is indeed its own standalone thing, we'll just have to wait and see if it turns out to be the case where the Avengers project could eventually or potentially connect connect within Spider-Man PS4's universe in any way. But as for this particular game itself, it's really great to know that they are primarily focusing on what makes Iron Man and Tony Stark such great characters. And speaking of the main characters, the main founder of Camouflage, obviously with Ryan Payton, continues to say within this article that VR and Iron Man are such a good fit because of the core fantasy of being inside Iron Man's suit and wearing his helmet. Even his pulsars are a perfect analog to the PlayStation Move controllers, he said. You can fly around, you can shoot with those controllers, and you've got the helmet, which is like an analog to the HUD from the films. Ryan Darcy, a designer at Camouflage, said that the team created an in-house prototype to test their idea. The very first thing we started to do was trying to figure out how to fly, because we knew that was going to be the most challenging thing, and we knew if we couldn't get that, then we were never going to make the game the way we wanted to make it, he said. We didn't want to be on rails, we wanted to have 360-degree movement. Payton said once they nailed the movement, they decided that they didn't want to do what he called a quote-unquote linear amusement park ride that was only for a few hours. We wanted to make a full game that actually gets into the area that I'm more interested in, which is the story side of things, he said. Tony Stark is his own worst enemy, and I think that's a really interesting story to tell. So with this game, we're building a really big VR game that's not only big action set pieces, open spaces where you can fly anywhere, but also pairing that with a really deep and personal story where you play as Tony. So to break down the main aspect of that one paragraph is that it is a huge relief to know for a fact that Iron Man VR will not be an on-rails shooter. And basically what that term means is that you will not have as much control of the character that you are playing as, but rather just be able to look around and aim while the game moves for you. So luckily to hear from the developers of Camouflage themselves, Iron Man VR is the exact opposite of that and will give players the amount of freedom that they crave when trying to play as Iron Man flying around the skies. And knowing that they're trying to give a lot of player freedom within this VR game to truly make the player feel immersed within Iron Man's armor really makes me feel confident that this is going to be a really great VR title for the PlayStation console. As for what another section of this article states, in a demo shown off to the press in New York City earlier this month, Camouflage let press check out the game's opening tutorial and then play a mission in the game. The experience was sublime. The HUD really captures the experience of being inside the armor, making the player feel like a superhero, and the controls are perfect. The move controllers guide Iron Man's hands and arms. To fly, players will need to use the thrusters in the palms of his suit. That makes the controls very intuitive, allowing players to control their speed and much of their direction with bursts from their palms. Firing weapons is also very straightforward. The main weapon, also the only one made available in the demo, are his palm pulsars, which you use simply by aiming your palm at an object and pulling the trigger. The tutorial has players fly through a number of rings to get used to flight controls and then shoot down practice targets. And here you can see a few screenshots of what the game looks like in action, and again, if you do want to see actual GIFs showing off gameplay in motion, go check out the PlayStation article as a link in the description below. But overall, after seeing a small glimpse of what the gameplay will entail within this Iron Man VR experience, I'm really curious and excited to try this all out for myself. The main two VR games that I've personally played myself on the PlayStation 4 is actually Astrobot and Moss. So after playing those more simplified VR games and now moving forward into a much more action-packed and story-driven VR experience really makes me happy to see where this is going to go. And speaking of the story, the final paragraph of the Variety article does go into what the demo showcased regarding the game's story and what gameplay players encountered when playing as Iron Man. So as the article finally states, the single mission, interestingly, opened with a player not as Iron Man, but as Tony Stark. There's a bit of interaction in that opening moment, with Stark interacting with Pepper Potts and his AI, but then the game quickly drops you back into Iron Man's suit, literally. The free flying and combat is so well designed that you quickly forget about the how and are able to focus on the tactics and requirements of the mission. Darcy said that what was shown was designed to give a sense of the game's full campaign and action. What it didn't show was a third component to the game, Stark's garage, where players will be able to tinker with the suit and develop new weapons. Those new weapons can be attached to Iron Man's arms and fired by bending the hand down instead of up to do things like shoot rockets. Payton noted that the team worked with Marvel to come up with a brand new suit design from the ground up. We looked actually back to the 1979 Bob Layton Iron Man, he said. He was a little more rounded and he had a red suit and gold arms and gold legs. And we actually looked at that as a core inspiration, but then we modernized it. And in case you forgot, Marvel Games did confirm that the designer who mainly crafted this Iron Man armor in the first place is a very popular Marvel artist of Adi Granov. And to familiarize yourself with his most recent work, he mainly created the Velocity suit within Spider-Man PS4 and this newest Iron Man outfit labeled the Impulse Armor. So seeing just like Insomniac looked at all the designs for Spider-Man PS4 in order to create their own unique design of the advanced suit, Camouflage did the same thing when creating the Impulse Armor. And again, just knowing how much passion Camouflage and Marvel do have for Iron Man as a character really makes me feel confident that this is going to be a very good game. And if this article from Variety.com wasn't enough to get you hyped, we also got some impressions from a huge gaming industry vet, of course being Greg Miller, where he said Iron Man VR is incredible. After rewatching the state of play footage, we had doubts about how fun it would be and how good it would look. This demo squashed them. The two move wands in your hand make you feel like you have Tony's repulsors strapped on. But as for the most important factor from Greg's tweets is when he says when, where you fly, and when you fight is all your decision in the level. It's not on rails and it feels fantastic. Camouflage stressed to me that this was a story-driven game and not an arcade experience, and that's how my demo felt. Plus, is that at J Hale tweets as Pepper Potts, for those of you who don't know, is the lovely voice actress of Jennifer Hale. So knowing that we already have Josh Keaton as Tony Stark / Iron Man and presumably Pepper Potts being voiced by Jennifer Hale, I am really excited to see what type of story we're gonna get within this game. And knowing that the game also stated that we will be encountering some amazing allies and foes throughout the story of it as well, I'm really curious to see what other voice actors may pop up during the main narrative of this game. And even though this game isn't going to be its own full standalone AAA title like what Spider-Man PS4 was, I still think Iron Man in VR is going to be a really trippy experience to see be played out. However, even though we don't have an official release date as to when this game is going to launch, we can expect it to come out sometime within this year of 2019. And with all that said, everyone, that's the video I have for you today, and please let me know all your thoughts in the comments section down below. What do you think about all this news relating to Iron Man VR, and does this game actually want you to go out and buy a VR headset for yourself? For me, even though I do own a VR headset, if I were to see this game initially, this actually might influence me to go out and buy a VR headset all on my own. And knowing that certain gamers went out directly and bought a PlayStation just to play Spider-Man on, I do think some people will do the same thing with Iron Man VR and directly go out and buy a VR headset just for this game. And until we get some more footage or news regarding this really exciting game, everyone, thank you all so much for watching. Stay merry, Marvelites. Peace out.
You could not live with your own failure. Where did that bring you? Back to me.
Whew. Anyone else need a breather?